Welcome back, COS supporters. This is COS Live. We are going over to the Wyoming Senate Judiciary Committee. Great to be with you. My name is Andrew Lusch, Regional Director for the Western Patriots region, and I'm joined by Rita Peters, my co-host, who is the Senior VP of Legislation. Rita, great to be back with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm pretty excited after that Iowa House Committee victory just a little while ago and hoping we get another win in the Wyoming Senate Judiciary Committee.
Me too, Rita. It'd be great to get back-to-back victories this week. So we're going over to Wyoming. It's the Senate Judiciary Committee, and our resolution is titled SJ5. So that's what you will hear it referred to as, SJ5. So far, we have 20 states that have passed our resolution calling for an Article 5 convention under 3 topics, which is fiscal restraints, term limits, and limits to federal power. We need 34 states to get to a convention, so 14 more states to go. Kansas was the latest state to pass late last month. Been a very exciting start to this legislative season. Rita, can you get our viewers caught up, though, to how we got to this point in Wyoming?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked because I want to be clear that just getting this hearing is a major victory in Wyoming in and of itself because this year is a budget only session in Wyoming. So, in order to introduce our COS application or any legislation that's not budget legislation, you have to get a 2/3 vote in one chamber just to introduce it and get the process started. The Wyoming Senate voted 21-10, that's the 2/3 supermajority, to send Convention of States to this committee and let it go through the process in a budget only year. The Wyoming Senate understands that our country is headed for a fiscal crisis and it's time for the states to use their power under Article 5 to intervene. The Convention of States Wyoming team has been busy for years now, building support across the state and in the legislature under the very able direction of our incredible state director, Julie, out there. And hopefully we'll get to see her, hear from her either today or on another COS Live because she is just incredible. So far, about 13,000 Wyoming residents have signed the Convention of States petition asking their state legislators to vote yes for Convention of States. Last year, 2025, the Wyoming Senate overwhelmingly voted in favor of our resolution, again by a supermajority vote, but then it went on to be defeated on the House side. So we're working hard and praying for a different outcome this year. Our team is working strategies to secure those handful of House votes that we need to make Wyoming the next state to fully pass the COS application. These public hearings, like you're about to see today, give citizens a chance to make their voices heard before the committee. So we're looking forward to seeing some of the COS Wyoming team show up and speak up to encourage their legislators to use this constitutional tool, this important check on the federal government, which has gone unchecked for too long. However, having said that, we are told that the committee is trying to keep public comments brief today. They're in a bit of a time crunch. So the team, I'm sure, is going to opt to just be respectful of the committee's time. They're going to have a few people show up to testify and show that the public supports this, but they're not going to go on and on. They're not going to respond to every argument. They're not going to make the whole case. This is a fairly supportive committee, so we don't really think it's necessary to do that. But the reason is because our Wyoming grassroots have been making the case now, as I said before, for years. They've been meeting with their legislators, sending them petitions, emailing them, meeting with them one-on-one, showing up for, the meetings in the district, and just building support across the state again. So they've done their homework in, the time when the legislature is not at the Capitol. We call it district season. They've done their work there, and now they can come and briefly say they're in support of Convention of States and want this committee to pass it and leave it at that. Now, we don't know what the opposition will do, and we don't know if the committee chair will put a strict time limit on testimony. So that'll be something we're going to find out in a few minutes. If we have a successful vote today, our Article 5 resolution would then be sent to the Wyoming Senate floor for debate. It has to get 3 readings on the floor. So that's 3 times that we'll need to get just a simple majority vote on the floor in order to pass this resolution again to the House side, where we do have more work cut out for us, but we are working on it. Our team is working really hard, Andrew.
Yeah, hat tip to our team. Hat tip to Julie Baker and hat tip to the whole Wyoming team. They're just doing incredible work. And the fact that we have this much support in the Senate really shows that we have such strong grassroots muscle in Wyoming. So very excited to see that we get to have a committee hearing despite it being a short session, despite it being only a budget session. So very, very cool to see that. So stay tuned, though, for a recap that will be happening after the committee hearing. So that'll be happening shortly. We're just waiting on that. We're going to get live reaction from Deanna Beckett, who is the regional director for Wyoming. And so she has been on our program quite a bit, Rita, in these last several weeks. So excited for her to come back again. She just really brightens up the room with her smile and just with her positivity. So I'm really excited to have her back. While we wait, I think we do have some national updates for those who maybe weren't tuning in earlier today, because we did have, like you said at the top of the program, we did have a victory in Iowa. We got a favorable vote in the full House committee on state government. The vote was 13-8 to move to the full floor of the House. So that's very exciting. You can catch that hearing and that debate by going to conventionofstates.com/live. That's where you can catch some coverage there. Rita, any, I know we covered it earlier, but anything that stuck out to you for viewers who maybe missed it?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. The committee members themselves didn't really debate the resolution. I think everybody knew where they stood. We did hear a Democrat member of that committee offer all these ridiculous amendments to try to amend our COS application to add in basically a bunch of progressive talking points. And those all failed by the same margin as he knew they would. So it was a little bit of grandstanding, a little bit frustrating to watch. But in the end, like you said, we got a 13-8 vote through that committee. And I might add, we picked up a vote that we didn't think we would have in that committee from one member. So that is a positive sign. Also, just so folks know, Iowa does things a little bit different than states like Wyoming, because in Iowa, passage through committee doesn't mean that our application automatically gets calendared for a debate and vote by the full chamber. It has to get debated in caucus, and then leadership has to choose to put it on the calendar. So we have 4 weeks, as Karen mentioned, to make that happen. Leadership in the Iowa House is very supportive of Convention of States, so we're very hopeful that we will get that full House debate and vote this year. And, looking forward to that. Our team is working very hard to make sure that happens. And yeah, I'm really hopeful about Iowa this year.
Yeah, I am as well. And again, the grassroots there have just done incredible work. We have strong supporters. We have strong endorsers too, like Steve Dace, who's part of Blaze TV, has a radio show, a podcast, and then Bob Vanderplots as well. So huge Iowa personalities that are respected there, and they come out very strong for Convention of States. So hopefully that will happen again this year as well, as we go to the full floor of the House. Very exciting. Also, that's not it though, Rita. We've had victories all over the place. We had one in Nebraska not too long ago as well, which was for removing a sunset provision. Can we talk about that for just a few minutes? Kind of clarify what a sunset provision is, or sunset
Yeah.
policy?
Sure. Well, the legislature is allowed to, if it wants to, when it passes the COS application, it can put a time period on it. So most of the states don't do that, which means the application for a convention to propose amendments remains valid until the requisite 34 states apply. But Nebraska was one of a handful of states that put an expiration date on its application. It is set to expire next year. So this year, our Nebraska team is working really hard to pass a clean version of the COS application that does not have an expiration date. And just a few days ago, I've lost track of time, Andrew. Was it this week? Was it last week? The weeks all run together. But the Nebraska committee that was holding our application without that sunset clause advanced it by a vote of 5-3. So now we have to get the votes that we need to ensure we can break a filibuster and pass on the floor in Nebraska. Remember, Nebraska is a unicameral, so only one chamber. It doesn't have to go through two chambers like every other state. But yeah, that was exciting to see that happen. And they have a few more months. Their session, I think, is a little bit longer this year than some states like Wyoming and South Dakota. So we'll see what happens. But I know our team out there is working on that really hard. And that's another Deanna Beckett state. So as you mentioned, Regional Director Deanna Beckett, who is the director for what we call the Wild West region, she is a busy girl these days.
Yeah, she really is busy, but you wouldn't see it by just looking at her. She looks calm and collected. She always has a smile, always bright. But under the surface, she's like a duck. Ducks look very calm above the surface, but under the surface, their legs are kicking so fast just to stay
That's
afloat.
right.
And so that's Deanna. She's a happy duck on the surface with crazy feet kicking underneath. Yeah, and it's funny that you said the weeks are blending together because they really are. That's why I said it was shortly, not long ago that we had that committee victory, because I couldn't remember when it was either. I mean, and that's not all. We got stuff that's happening in South Dakota. We recently had a smoke out, I think is what we're calling it. That's the procedure. Yeah. And that was 25-9, it looks like. So what does that mean, though, now that we're in this, that the smokeout was passed, just for our viewers who are not familiar with that term, what does that mean? And what's the next step in South Dakota?
Yeah, well, the smokeout is a procedural maneuver in South Dakota where 1/3 of the members of a chamber, in this case, the House of Representatives, can stand in favor of using this procedure to pull a bill from committee to the floor. So a lot of members don't like that. It's not a favored procedure because it bypasses the committee process. But in this case, we had a really good argument for using it because one member of the committee that our COS application was in has been absent from committee, and she was a yes vote. So her absence from that committee gave us a good reason to make the case that we needed to use this procedure, and it was successful. That was just yesterday, believe it or not. And the next steps would be a calendaring vote. We have to have a majority of the members of the House agree to put that application on the calendar for the actual debate and vote on the merits of the resolution. So that's the next step. We've got a little work to do to get those votes, but the people of South Dakota want this to happen. So I am hoping and praying that the House members, the majority of them at least, will heed the voice of the people and make South Dakota state number 21. What an incredible thing that would be.
Yeah, indeed. That would be just wonderful if South Dakota would be state number 21, if we could get the job done. I mean, it reminds me of what happened in Nebraska. We thought we were dead in Nebraska several years ago. I guess it was 2023 or 22 when we passed in Nebraska, and it was a miracle that we were able to revive it and then pass in Nebraska. So maybe that can happen. Oh, it looks like the committee has begun, Rita. So we're going to go over to the committee, and then we'll be back with Deanna after the committee's over.
Sounds good.
Throughout the afternoon. So we'll do our best to keep a quorum and move these bills through the process. Pierre, go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Senator Kriegel,
Here.
Senator Crum,
Excused.
Senator Hicks,
Excused.
Senator Kolb,
Present.
Chairman Olson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The first bill for our consideration is Senate Joint Resolution 5, Convention of States. Senator Driscoll, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Olson Committee. I bring you Senate Journal 5, Convention of States. I'm not going to take very long. You guys are a busy committee with lots of stuff in front of you. This is an old topic we've had in front of the Senate numerous times. It's passed the Senate numerous times. Folks, this is a true Wyoming bill. I'm going to just go to the kind of the guts of it. The federal government doesn't quit spending and they don't quit trying to regulate us. And this is the federal government set up when they did the Constitution. They set it up and they left one area in case things got totally out of control for us to do it. And that's the Article 5 convention. And what we're trying to do is we're limited to 3 topics on it. They are imposing fiscal restraint on the federal government, reducing power and jurisdiction of the federal government, limiting the terms of office for federal officials in Congress. Things we talk about every single day in the Senate that everybody has a hard time with and nobody knows how to deal with. And I'm going to leave you with the example I've left on it. You know, we're $39 trillion in debt today, and everybody admits there's not a person out there that doesn't admit it's a problem. And the argument is, what do you do about it? And they say, well, what happens if things go wrong with Convention of States? And my example is, and you're going to hear it on the floor of the Senate, is you're in an airplane and the pilot has a heart attack and he's dead and the plane's heading towards the ground. Do you go back and buckle up your seatbelt and say, I hope we all survive, or you try to do something with the plane? And that's exactly what this is inaction is a guarantee that we're going to have a disaster in the United States. With that, I'd stand for questions. I'm not even going to go any further. I'll turn it over to Senator Larson.
All right, we'll see if the committee has any questions for Senator Driscoll.
Mr.
All right, Senator Larson, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be brief too. I just want to reiterate a little bit that Senator Driscoll said, $39 trillion in debt, 39 million. Don't even know what that number is. I do want to mention that there is a backup, once if we do bring an amendment, it's 38 states that have to approve that. And so if something did come out that wasn't what we wanted, it's not going to go anywhere. Just takes 13 different houses of both in the nation to say, no, we're not even going to talk about it. So I just want to be here for support, and if you have questions.
Senator Larson, remind me how many states have adopted this legislation?
As far as I know, I think there's 20, and I'm sure I have somebody in the back who could correct that. I think Kansas just did pass it, is what I understand. So we're at 20. I don't know if they're actually counting the what do they call it when you have you bring a proposal that is open for any convention.
Oh, just an Article 5 convention.
Yeah, on any topic. I don't think those are included in that. I would have to get some back here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
it's in play in a number of other states as well. It's not just Kansas. There's multiple other states it's in play. I think that the world's starting to realize, including the banking industry, that it's not sustainable where we're at. Something has to happen, and it's pretty obvious at this point. Congress is not going to act on their own. It's going to take something to get them there.
Senator Larson.
Couple more, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And we all need to realize that Congress could do this every day. Sure, they can they just need to make an amendment, 2/3 of them, and we could send it out. And that's how it's been done. It's never been finished by the states bringing up proposals. I do want to make sure everyone knows that the balanced budget amendment type, we met that requirement in 1979. We lost it for a bit. We met that requirement again in 2017 with more than 34 states. So it's really sad that our Congress won't do their job. And all their job is to set a time and a place. And I hope we go to the Supreme Court and have somebody declare that they need to make that.
Any questions for Senator Larson? Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Larson, could you please explain the process? If there was quote unquote, what people fear is a runaway convention or something, something came up within the convention that we did not send our folks out with the authority to approve, and explain to people the ratification process, if it was to go forward, and how would it work for the state of Wyoming?
Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I was a sponsor of that, what do we call it? The Delegate Limitation Act, 2017, 18, 17. We put in the legislation that 3 from the Senate and 3 from the House would be chosen to go. The rules when they got there would be decided upon when they get there with all the other states. And it always has been a 1 state, 1 vote. And if they didn't keep a majority at the convention, then we would, it'd be done. So they have to have the majority to keep the convention going, and that all these small states are not going to vote on a 1 man, 1 vote. We wouldn't want California to control it all. So I don't know if that helps, but
Senator Culp, follow up.
Not so much. I'm trying to get to the point that is it true that when it goes to you have a convention of states that it would come back to the state of Wyoming and it has to be approved by the House and Senate. Could you explain that process to be more clear?
you want to.
Senator
Yeah,
Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, numerous. One, I'm gonna go back to 17. There's penalties involved if they don't follow the directions we give them, harsh penalties. So if they don't follow, actually, it's probably the only time I've ever seen a legislator can go to jail for something other than bribery, is if you don't follow, you don't do it. But once they've come up with it, it takes 38 states to ratify it. And our state, both the House and Senate, has to sign off on whatever deal was cut by our people to make it happen. Excuse me? If you're answered for me, answer me.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I thought it was 2/3. We need 2/3 approval in the House and Senate too.
It does. Both thank you.
I was just trying to get to that, to kind of.
I'm good at being led down the path.
Well, Senator Driscoll, I just want to make sure the people out in the audience and the people listening understand the process and the safeties behind that process, and hear it from you folks who are testifying, good senators, on what they are. That was didn't mean to ask a leading question, but I just want people to know if that's true or not.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kolb, it's absolutely true, and it is safeguarded unbelievably. I've been down this path, and like I said, it's always hard when you go to a convention of any kind and you got people. But my belief, it goes back to the airplane example, is doing nothing is never the correct answer. To pray that things happen that cause damage either to your people, your state, or your country, and it's an abdication of duty if you don't make a affirmative move to try to do something right. And the safeguards are in place. I have every faith in the world that our representative that would end up representing Wyoming would do it faithfully and unbelievably well. The rural states are the ones that are the bedrock of this movement and of the country. And my belief is the 38, the only way they're going to get 38 states to ratify it is we'll be treated fairly.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Crum.
Yeah, just a quick question. It's my understanding that the delegation, when it's selected, will be given 2 or 3 topics, and that is all they can talk about when they're there. They can't come up with a topic of their own or a topic somebody else gives. And if we get off topic, they pack up and come home.
Chairman
Senator
Olson,
Driscoll.
Senator Crum, I will bring the 17 bill. I believe it's 17 of Senator Larson's, because Wyoming is way ahead of most other states. We have in our statutes a sideboard that says you will do what we ask, because that's been the big fear is you send a guy like me, you get back there and Ogden goes, oh man, I'm having a good time with the guys from New York and California and I'm going to vote with them. And if you come back, you're going to go to jail in Wyoming. It's very narrowly defined.
Anything to add, Senator Larson?
Just a little bit.
Yes.
The secretary, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Secretary of State's kind of the one that was supposed to be watching over the convention for our state and to make sure that no one gets off a topic what they are sent to talk about. So if they did, they're jerked right out of there and could be charged with a felony.
Any other questions, committee? All right, appreciate you both. Thank you. We'll move to public comment. I don't think there are any agencies wishing to testify on this bill. So I'll just go to general public comment. If you want to comment, just come on up and go ahead and fill up the chairs. Welcome.
Good.
We'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Julie Baker, Volunteer State Director for Convention of States Action in Wyoming, and I live just outside of Hewlett in Senate District 1. So Senator Driscoll and Larson went over the process, so I won't belabor that point. But I did want to add that the operative words in Article 5 are proposed amendments. And so, in other words, what we're saying is we want to get together with the other states, have a meeting and suggest some stuff, make some suggestions. And some of the critics will say it's too risky to have that meeting and suggest stuff. But the alternative is trusting the broken system to fix itself. And that hasn't worked for decades. Some of the claims that you might hear are, we don't follow the Constitution anyway, and so amendments won't work. But the truth is that we do follow the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court and as expanded by the Supreme Court. And so that's exactly why some targeted amendments are required to, bring the original intent of the Constitution back in line. And the other thing is that history tells us that amendments actually are followed for about 100 years after they're ratified. If you go back and look at all the amendments, you can go back to 1920. Me and a bunch of ladies in here can still vote, and that was over 100 years ago, that amendment. Another claim that you might hear is the Constitution was illegally adopted in the first place. But all one has to do is just read the commissions that were given to the gentlemen who were at the convention, 1787, and it's very clear that they all acted appropriately. And they also followed the ratification process that they agreed upon prior to the ratification of the Constitution. So they're unfounded claims. We have centuries of precedent on how a convention operates. So we know exactly how that works. And if we think about it, America's greatest successes, some of the greatest successes, such as the 1776 independence from Britain, they defied the naysayers. Disaster was predicted, but we got America. Or 1803, the Louisiana Purchase, for example, lots of people were fearing catastrophe and bringing up all the risks, but that secured our western frontier and it fueled our growth. So these are all daring decisions by courageous leaders. We have courageous leaders here. We know what the stakes are. The stakes are that we collapse financially. Those are some of the stakes. We get overregulated, which we already are. Term limits on federal officials, fiscal discipline, and reclaimed authority can restore federalism. I know Wyoming isn't afraid to have a meeting and suggest things. We've always stood for independence and courage, and I think we ought to honor that tradition. So I'd really encourage you to please vote yes on SJ5. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Baker? As always, we appreciate your testimony. Ms. Herman?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be against. I don't know if you want to take to the two supporting statements and then me, or out of order.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. My name is Marguerite Herman, here for the League of Women Voters. And the League for about 20 years have had a formally adopted position opposing a convention of the states. And just briefly, our president at the time, Elizabeth McNamara, said we want an orderly representative process, and we want to prevent special interests from dominating a constitutional convention. And specifically, the items that the League on a national level determined would have to be part of, and if a convention of states happened, there would have to assure those things being representative and orderly. Number one, the convention must be transparent and not conducted in secret. I think we can all agree on that. Representation at the convention must be based on a population rather than one state, one vote, and delegates should be elected rather than appointed. So that again would be the proportional representation and selected, not appointed, elected, not appointed. Voting at the convention must be by delegate, not by state, because states, if they have a handful of delegates, states have diverse views across from corner to corner for sectors. And so we would want their voice to represent that diversity. The convention must be limited to a specific topic. Only state resolutions on a single topic count when determining if a convention should be called. In other words, when they're counting it up and trying to create that critical mass, it should be a call on the same topic. The validity of state calls for an Article 5 constitutional convention should be determined by the most recent action of the states. And that doesn't apply to us. In other words, some states have rescinded it. So the rescission would be the most recent position. The bill and several of the bills that have come forward in past years do try to narrow the topic of it. It shall be only on balanced budget. And this one states 3 specific things. And as I understand it, the Convention of States, the individual states can come with directions and limits. And once you get there, the convention sets its own rules. And so good intentions we may think it's going to limit, but we have no guarantee what it's going to do when they get there. They'll set their own rules of how they're going to proceed and topics they're going to be allowed. And so I think one can take some comfort, but very little comfort from Wyoming saying, because I think that many other states will have other things to add and detract, things that are going to go on at it. And this bill, this resolution does call for one state, one vote, which I understand is in the interest of Wyoming. But again, a proportional representation is sort of the heartbeat of the League of Women Voters, and so that would be contrary to that. And just real briefly, a statement that the League of Women Voters was a signatory to in 2017. An Article 5 convention is a dangerous threat to the U.S. Constitution, our democracy, and our civil rights and liberties. There is no language in the U.S. Constitution to limit a convention to one issue. And there is reason to fear that a convention, once called, will be able to consider any amendments to the Constitution that the delegates want to consider. And again, I know the bill itself talks about limiting it to or protecting, putting off limits, the Bill of Rights. But once again, once the convention convenes, it's who knows what they'll decide. There are also no guidelines or rules to govern a convention due to the lack of provisions in the Constitution and lack of historical precedent. It is unknown how delegates to a convention would be picked, what rules would be in place, what would happen in the case of legal disputes, what issues would be raised, how the American people would be represented, and how to limit the influence of special interests in a convention. And I know that in past years, I've been accused of being alarmist. Nevertheless, it is the League's position that any constitutional issue could be brought up for revision by convention. This includes civil rights, civil liberties, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, privacy rights, the guarantee of equal protection under law, the right to vote, immigration issues, and the right to counsel and a jury, among others. Basic separation of executive, legislative, and judicial powers would be subject to revisions as well. A convention might not preserve the role of courts in protecting our constitutional rights. Even the supremacy of federal law and the Constitution over state laws could be called into doubt. And so I guess, which is again the thing that the Constitution should be amended over time. And I think a lot of commentators recently said one of our problems is that it has been so hard to amend and keep current and respond to people's needs and misgivings. But currently there are only 2 ways to do it: Convention of States, and then the other method, which actually has been used, is where legislatures pass an amendment and then it wins support of 2/3 of the states. So and that is the preferred method currently among the 2 choices that the League of Women Voters supports. We just think that this is the wrong way to do it, just because of the uncertainties, the lack of rule, the lack of, however tightly we want to write our resolution, once it convenes, it's who knows. And then the proportional representation piece, which is kind of, one of our founding principles. And so, we oppose it. I understand the desire of people to change the Constitution, and it's a legitimate desire. this we think is it's too open and has a lot of potential to do harm. And that's all. I will answer questions if you have them, but I tried to get through that pretty fast.
Committee questions for Ms. Herman? All right, thank you. You're up next.
Chairman Olson and committee members, thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am Stephen Manini, a retired physician of 42 years and served 9 years as a major in the Army Reserve Medical Corps. I have lived in Cody for 33 years, Senate District number 20. I'm here today to support Wyoming's participation in a convention of states under Article 5 of the United States Constitution. Wyoming was founded on independence, local control, and fiscal responsibility. Yet decisions made in Washington, D.C., especially in land management, energy, and healthcare, often ignore our rural realities and Wyoming values. As a physician, I saw federal healthcare mandates increase costs, reduce flexibility, and interfere with doctor-patient decisions that belong at the local level. The founders provided the second clause of Article 5 precisely for this kind of federal overreach, a lawful and peaceful process for states to propose amendments when Congress fails to restrain itself. A convention of states is not a rewrite of the Constitution. It is a limited, temporary gathering for proposing amendments. Concerns that the convention might exceed its authority or a runaway convention are unfounded. Verifiable truth demonstrates the states control their delegates. The convention is bound by the language of the applications, and any proposed amendments require ratification by 38 states. All these are strong, multi-layered safeguards. This is not a partisan effort. It is about restoring constitutional balance of power and protecting Wyoming's sovereignty. I respectfully urge this committee to support SJ 5, the Convention of States resolution. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? All right, we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Welcome to Senate Judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. As per my members' policy, sitting in support of this joint resolution. Two areas. One point I want to make, it's been mentioned that changing the U.S. Constitution and the Wyoming Constitution is difficult. It should be. That's a serious decision. So we've been given this tool that we should utilize. The overreach of the federal government on resource management, as was mentioned, has cost us thousands of jobs and millions of dollars of revenue. I look at what's happened to the timber industry in Wyoming. It's dwindled dramatically. We're down to, I believe, 3 mills that are operating in Wyoming, where we used to have close to 20. As far as the fiscal restraint, when interest on your debt is one of the highest expenditures the federal government has, that's not a good business practice. That's affecting what we're paying as interest rates. And as far as, we have a balanced budget, but we're relying on borrowing to make that up. And the only two options you have is to either reduce expenses or increase revenue, or you can do both. My organization would appreciate that instead of increasing revenue, taxes and fees, that we reduce expenditures. With that, Mr. Chairman, sitting in support of this resolution, I would take any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Questions for Mr. Moline? All right,
Thank
thank you. Any other testimony in the room? Before we go online, we're going to go online. I've got several people signed up. I'm not sure who's actually there, though. Let's go ahead and let Eldon in. Welcome, Mr. Stahl.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Eldon Stahl from Evanston, Wyoming. I'm opposed to SJ5. A lot of things to cover. One, Wyoming has an application on the books from 2017 for an Article 5 constitutional convention asking for a federal balanced budget amendment. That subject would presumably be covered in this resolution under a more broad fiscal restraints category. So is SJ5 redundant, asking for a second convention, or trying to expand the agenda of a single convention? Two, if the legislature can't agree why it wants a constitutional convention, and many other states can't either, why should we expect the state delegations to such a convention to limit the convention agenda? Now, if you say state law would limit delegates, how exactly do you expect to exercise jurisdiction on a crime committed in all probability at a convention held outside Wyoming? And if you can enact penalties, isn't the damage already done? Aren't the votes already counted? Also, shouldn't we at least consider the reservations held by James Madison, father of the Constitution, about the wording of Article 5? For example, from his 1787 convention notes, September 10th, quote, Mr. Madison remarked on the vagueness of the terms, call a convention for the purpose. How was a convention to be formed? By what rule? Decide. What the force of its acts, end quote. And then September 15th, he had reservations again. Quote, difficulties might arise as to the form, the quorum, etc., which in constitutional regulations ought to be as much as possible avoided. But proponents will tell you such concerns were dreamed up by 20th century progressives, and the founders knew exactly how a convention would work. Well, if so, why did the father of the Constitution not know the answer to that question? Why did he have such concerns? Now, somebody said, Congress is a constitutional convention all the time. Well, you know, with Congress, it's much different. We have many, many of these questions answered. For example, you know who your congressman is, how long their terms are, how they voted, how long when they're going to be in session, how they're paid, on and on. We know none of those things about delegates to a constitutional convention. Somebody mentioned, hey, they thought we met the threshold back in 1979 for a convention, and Congress has been cheating us out of that. Well, you know, that same group of people back in 2017 that pushed for a convention in the name of a balanced budget amendment, now they're pushing for suing Congress, getting state attorneys general to join together to get the Supreme Court to force Congress to call a convention. And they're claiming that not only, you know, contrary to what they previously claimed, that you had to have similarly worded stuff about, say, a convention for a balanced budget amendment. Now they're saying, oh, we can lump things together like on the Bill of Rights, on avoiding civil war, on direct election of U.S. senators. And for some reason in their mind, Congress is cheating us out of a constitutional convention, and we need to have, well, in their own model resolution says it would cover not just a balanced budget amendment, but any unlimited convention. So they're basically getting rid of all pretenses in this sense. Now, applying for a convention isn't just suggesting things, okay, or allowing that. A convention proposes things that can actually become part of the U.S. Constitution. This is, when you apply for a convention, it's like taking the safety off of your firearm. It's not an inconsequential thing. Basic gun safety says never do that unless you have something that you intend to shoot in your sights and you're ready to pull the trigger. So we shouldn't downplay the consequences of that. Now, proponents also like to say, oh, it wasn't a runaway convention in 1787. You know, all you have to do is go to the National Archives website and look up, and it's very clear. They went in to the 1787 convention with the intent to revise the Articles of Confederation, our first constitution, and then they emerged with a new proposed constitution. I'd like to say, oh, we could never have a bad amendment come out. I guess we like to forget the 16th, 17th, and 18th amendments, the income tax, losing state sovereignty, and prohibition. And the first two of those were ratified by the Wyoming legislature. So I don't think we should get fooled again. They say, oh, it only takes 13 states to stop a bad amendment. Well, basic math also tells us that it takes only 13 states to stop a good amendment. So there's a two-edged sword there. They like to, I guess, not tell you the other side of the story. So I would say with this particular resolution, for the 11th time in 12 years, Mr. Chairman, please vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl. Any questions, committee? All right, we appreciate your testimony. Was there any other testimony online? All right, I will go ahead and close public testimony on this Senate file. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
It's been-
Joint resolution.
Yes, moved by Senator Hicks,
Second.
seconded by Senator Kolb. Are there any amendments? Any discussion to this Senate joint resolution?
Call for the question.
All right. Pierre, will you do a roll call vote on Senate Joint Resolution 5?
This is a roll call vote on Senate Joint Resolution 5. Senator Crago,
He left an aye vote.
Senator Crum,
Aye.
Senator Hicks,
Aye.
Senator Kolb,
Aye.
Chairman Olson,
Aye.
5 ayes.
All right, oh, no, Senator Driscoll already ran away, but he'll be ready. Okay. Thanks, everyone, if you came here for that legislation, we appreciate you joining us. The next.
Well, welcome back. You've been watching a public hearing in consideration of our Article 5 Convention of States legislation. It was referred to as SJ5, and it was before the Wyoming Senate Judiciary Committee. Rita, it was a blowout, 5-0 in favor, which is a huge win. So we're expecting Regional Director Deanna Beckett to be with us shortly to give a recap and just kind of her thoughts on what happened today. Until then, Rita, let's just talk about some of what we saw in this hearing today. Over to you for just your reaction.
Sure. Well, I'll keep it fairly brief. You got to love those unanimous committee votes. That was awesome. Our sponsor, Senator Ogden Driscoll, did a great job introducing the resolution. We also heard from Senator Dan Larson, a longtime champion of Convention of States in the Wyoming Senate. He pointed out that 38 states would have to ratify any proposals. And that means that only 13 chambers would need to fail to act or basically do nothing in order to defeat a bad amendment proposal. Then we heard from superstar, my favorite, Julie Baker. We all love Julie Baker. I wish we had Julie Bakers in every state all over the country. I love her testimony, Andrew. She's always good, but she was particularly good today. She said, what we're looking for here is a meeting to suggest some stuff. Right? Yep. Does that sound scary? I don't think so. And she pointed out that the alternative is to trust the broken system to fix itself. She also pointed out that amendments are followed. You know, some opponents like to say, well, if they don't follow the Constitution, they're not going to follow amendments. But history clearly shows us that amendments are followed. She just did a great job. She closed by saying, Wyoming isn't afraid to have a meeting. We've always stood for independence and courage, and she was proven correct today, Andrew. We heard from the League of Women Voters. They're always opposed to an Article 5 convention, and the reason, and this is very telling, is that they know that as it stands, it would be one state, one vote at a convention, and they don't like that, so they're opposed. We heard from Convention of States grassroots supporter, Dr. Mainini. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. And I was told that he drove all the way from Cody to be there. And I was told that that's a 4-hour drive. What incredible grassroots we have. And he pointed out that an Article 5 convention process, the very reason it's in the Constitution is to allow the states to stop federal overreach. It's a peaceful, orderly process, and it does not allow for a rewrite of the Constitution. It only allows for proposing amendments. We had a representative of the Farm Bureau there to express support. I think that's a huge deal in a state like Wyoming. And then this was the most terrible part, Andrew. We had to listen to Eldon Stahl. He shows up all over the country to testify. And he makes, frankly, I think some really weird arguments that I can't always totally follow. He pulls the founding fathers' quotes out of context. It totally drives me crazy. But clearly his testimony was completely disregarded by this. They saw right through it. So that's the recap, Andrew.
Yeah, great recap. We'll take the win. Sorry, Eldon, but your testimony fell on deaf ears. We have Deanna Beckett in the wings coming on, so let's talk to her. Here she is. Deanna, great to see you. Glad we have that smiling face back. I know this is a huge victory for you and your team. So just tell us how the team is feeling right now.
Team is excited. We were expecting this vote. This was exactly duplicate of last year's vote. So I just loved watching the faces of the committee members and knowing that they were all supportive. As Rita said, Julie did an amazing job. She looked so comfortable, just kind of resting her arms up there. Just that's where her place is. And these are her friends. These all the people on the committee, many legislators. And one thing I'd like to point out too, which I know we haven't, gotten to the nitty gritty, but this was similar to last year, is when it was voted off of the floor with the 2/3, the Senate president is Julie's personal senator, and they get along, but he disagrees on Convention of States, but she's built that relationship for so many years and so long, and comes alongside him with other issues that he gave her last year and this year the choice of the committee. And it's just amazing what those relationships really pay off.
Yeah, it's really all about relationships. So I love hearing you say that, because this team, and Julie in particular, have definitely used their time wisely in building those legislative relationships. Deanna, any moments that stood out to you during the hearing?
I loved Senator Larson's suit color and tie. And I'm glad you took notes of the highlights, Rita, because I wasn't able to do that. I'm actually sitting in the South Dakota state capitol right now on the lower level, just to get out of the noise. So looking forward to going upstairs for that. But just Julie's way of making it simple, keeping it very plain and basic. We don't have to, speak on a higher level. We just have to, speak our heart.
Yeah, and boy, you are real busy. You're in the South Dakota Capitol. It's amazing that you just haven't stopped. That we got through the committee.
I missed some of that. Was that a question, Andrew? Sorry.
Yeah, I think Andrew might be having some technical trouble, but Deanna, what's next now that we're through committee there?
In Wyoming, we're off to the Senate floor, and it might be today. We are not sure. Could be today, tomorrow, and that's why Julie drove 5 hours. I was mentioning to some folks that both Dr. Mainini and Julie drove lots and lots of hours to be there, because they know this is going to be fast and furious, and they're looking forward to it.
That's incredible. And it's 3 separate votes they'll need on the floor, right? 3 readings, so 3 separate votes. But again, we had a super majority for introduction. So Lord willing, we'll still be praying, and I know the team is still doing its work, but Lord willing, we will pass the Senate again. And all the while, we are doing our work on the House to secure some more votes. Deanna, if people are watching from Wyoming, how can they help?
They can contact their legislator if they've already signed the petition. Julie will be sending out an email soon for action to call their senator. And then go to conventionofstates.com/act to get involved and to be part of this process.
All right. Well, Deanna, thanks. And please send our thanks and our congratulations to the amazing team there on the ground in Wyoming. And with that, folks, we are going to sign off for today. So please subscribe, share, and catch all the action at conventionofstates.com/COS live. Tune in Sundays for Mark Meckler's Battle Cry broadcast. If you want to ask the president of Convention of States Action a question, go to conventionofstates.com/ask Mark. And then finally, help us push this movement forward by visiting conventionofstates.com/act. Thanks, everyone. That's all for today.